do you get your ecosystem of teachers? How do you know how good they are? I mean, like what process do they go through? What rigor to make sure that, because they're very, very essential to the success of Gradely?
Yes. So in terms of the school, right, we started with the schools, and data was our biggest teach to the schools. Is the schools have teachers, and they don't even know how to say that this teacher is better than another teacher. They don't even have a system to figure that out. But we can with our system, right? And so we're able to give data and give it in more real-time way. So instead of waiting to the end of report card at third term for a parent to find out that my child may not be able to get an A in math, right? On Gradely, you can find out in week 4, in week 3, because everything is showing, and you can see the improvement your child is making or not making. So the school is able to prove its value to the parent. And we think that in the future, schools will differentiate themselves on their ability to improve academic performance, right? So school parents come to schools, and actually we've done a survey, one of my startups that I invested in, they did a survey of about 800 parents. And that survey says that parents chose schools because of facilities and what they heard. So I heard about this school, they're very, very good school. My friend went there and things like that. Yeah. But they remove children from schools at least once in 3 years because of academic performance. So it's a differentiator for schools. And so that's the strongest proposition, is that we can enable the entire school start to deliver personalized learning, start to deliver that personal attention, which is what the parent wants. The parent wants you to take care of their child in a very unique way, because they are unique. To answer the second question about how we select tutors, the first thing we do is that we give them a very hard test, a test for really high flyers within that type of knowledge field, right? So a mathematics test that you have to really be good in math to be able to answer. And so 95% of teachers don't even pass the test. So it's essentially, it limits. So we are talking to be 5%. And then the next stage is the interview stage. And post the interview stage, interviews with experienced tutors. So we have like an advisory board of teachers, the best teachers in some of the best schools right? And we also have understanding of online teaching, how that's different from just typical physical teaching. So they interview the teachers for their ability to communicate, to their expression, their ability to pass knowledge on. And some of them then fail there. And then the last stage is that we now use the platform itself. So during the onboarding, we link you to an actual school, actual teacher and students. And based on how you teach that student, if the student improves in his practice afterwards, we can tell that your teaching made an impact. Almost instantly, we can tell. We do 1 hour with the child on what problems, an angle of elevation. And I give him a question, angle of elevation, what problem? And he doesn't do as well as, he does just exactly like he did the last time before your class. And your class did not work, right? So it's so simple. So essentially, these are the 3 stages of like screening. I know the only 1% of the teachers really go through. And we have about 3,000 teachers on the platform.
You said you started, Gradely 2 years ago, and that was like in the heart of, right, smack in the heart of
COVID-19.
Of COVID, lockdown, in fact. And even after that, there was limitations as to what you can do, how schools can open. How did that help Gradely, or how did that disrupt Gradely, or how did Gradely disrupt the conventional teaching way?
Yes, I think, let me tell you one thing I can attribute to that. Homeschooling parents. There's an increase in parents that now decide to be more in charge of their children's education. We have a few of them on Gradely. But even beyond homeschooling parents is you have parents that are now better. They're feeling that they need to be more equipped. They didn't know the curriculum. When they shut down, then parents are like, I don't know what to do. So they're like, depending on the schools, and the schools are depending on us, and there's all this chaos, right? Of course, an additional advantage of that period was that we got all the publicity, we got positioning, we were interviewed by CNN, BBC, every radio station, every TV station. It was, come and tell us what we will do now that there's a lockdown, you see what I mean? And so we became, started being the vanguards for what the future of learning was. And I think this is stuck with us even post-pandemic. Even though schools would like to act like, they can go back to the former things, they cannot 100%, because that's changed forever.
So how did you go about this? Is expensive. You build a platform, you've acquired 3,000 teachers, they go through a process. How have you been funding this? I would like to say your business is still in its infancy. Resources. How have you resourced and financed this? I think COVID has helped you, as you said. You've already answered the question about publicity, because everybody was interviewing you. So that should have created
that helped. Yeah.
Funding side.
Interestingly, we've been very lean as a company, and intentionally so, because we weren't sure that there was already money from the VC community that understood the value of EdTech to be able to, and then there's some level of patient capital even required, and you have to, and there's also the level of specific domain expertise. Like you need some domain expertise to be able to understand why Greeley is going to be a $100 million company in a short time. So you don't have enough investors that understand that, and so it was already clear that we needed to go lean. We did get some investment. We raised over $400,000, and some of that we also got grants, and we entered into as many competitions and grant opportunities as we could. But even with the money we earn, you see, we're very capital efficient. With what we received, we built a learning management system that is super robust, probably the most robust in the country. We built content that spans year 1 to 12. We built a community of teachers and trained them and helped them and screened them and trained them. And we built a whole team that's working today, and also revenue has helped as well, right? So, because of we wanted to be lean, it was important to start making money from day one. There are disadvantages to that, I must say, because sometimes it pays to have built it, tested it, and then go to market and get started.
The fact that you're generating revenue just proves the model as well. So that will encourage more investment.
Validate it, exactly. Yeah. So you're always validating, but validation is very different from scaling. And so at some point we need to switch gears to we're validated, let's scale. Yeah. I think that's where we kind of are.
I believe that technology is going to play a big role in education, right, going forward, especially in Nigeria, where people are young and we're adopted to embrace technology, and it's actually more cost effective. It's easier to hand out 100,000 mobile phones and build many schools, especially, and then monitor from wherever you are. But education is not just about maths and English. I always say education is also about interaction, networking, understanding people, understanding the diverse group, understanding sports as well. Sports is part of that whole team building and reinforces that maths and English. Now, if you're in the education space and you're in the edtech space, how do you account for, and if you want to be a holistic education provider, right, from a different perspective? How do you think it's going to play out in the end? How are you going to close that other gap that physical schools have, which is that physical interaction, but we're social, human beings are social. That's sporting, that the building up that sixth sense, because that sixth sense about, I feel like this person is right, this person is wrong. You cannot do that through technology.
Yes, that's a good question. Super great question. I think this is how we see it, right? It's our own vision for the world in terms of that. One is that the four C's, the skill sets needed for 21st century and knowledge economy is critical thinking, for which maths, English, and literacy numeracy essentially create a foundation of. So I can think through, why should I make this decision instead of that decision, pro con, what's the value, cost benefit analysis. That type of thinking is super important. But beyond that, like you've mentioned, you need collaboration, communication, and creativity that is brought about by constraint of an actual, sometimes physical, messy environment, right? Now, in order to close the gap beyond what online learning can provide, I believe in the future of hybrid schools. These are schools where, people congregate around like their estates or their communities and have a place where it's mostly for the physical side of things, right? But the online side of the actual tuition has been taken out, right? So they can come in and plug in their headphones. And by the way, we have a physical representation of this, an experiment. We have a school in Awoyaya where there's 20 computers. It's a computer, like it's a lab, or it's a classroom and also a school. And so students come in, they pay per day or per month, and they have access to content, they take assessment, they have a learning manager that's helping them through, right? What's now the missing piece is that, if you get a bigger building or something like that, you can then have places where they can do interaction, games, fun, so you put in extracurricular, coding class, and then downstairs there's a basketball court. And so essentially you are now, fostering. So it's a hybrid school, right? It's a flexible school. Yeah. Right? So you break down to parts so that the sum is, better than.
I like that. Hybrid school. The future is hybrid schools.
Even in the virtual reality.
Yes, exactly. Okay, yes, and that's interestingly, that's where I think virtual reality is going to play a role in actually delivering on that at least fostering networking. Boye, it was great talking to you on Tech Talks. Thank you very much. It's very insightful, and we will continue the conversation offline. Thank you.
Yeah.